Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. I've been speaking with Professor Mike Ozakhome, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Prof, just give me a moment, please. Let's deal with this matter. The story of a coalition of Nigerian leaders who issued a powerful joint statement yesterday warning that our nation, in their words, is bleeding. They say the killings across parts of Nigeria now rival war zones like Ukraine and Gaza, with over 10,000 deaths recorded in just 2 years, according to the Amnesty International figures. From Benue to Zamfara, Plateau to Katsina, entire communities have been sacked, displaced and left to fend for themselves as bandits. Boko Haram and other armed groups tighten their grip. The leaders insist this is no longer just about farmer-elder clashes or ethnic tension. They call it a full-blown security collapse that demands urgent, extraordinary action. Their proposal, one of it, is a presidential task force on national security with sweeping powers to restore peace and rebuild public trust. But will the government listen and take action too? They want that history will not judge the bandits, but it will judge those in power who had a chance to act and failed. The question now is whether this government and Nigeria's political elites can rise above differences to reclaim our nation's future. For millions of Nigerians who are living in fear, the call is urgent. They're saying, protect us or risk losing the country itself. Tonight, I'm being joined by one of the signatories to the letter that's been written to the president. Some of them include former leaders in public office and journalists and a host of eminent Nigerians, former ministers. Tonight, I'm being joined by a former Minister of Aviation, Mr. Osita Chidoka. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you so much indeed. You and your friends and colleagues came together in that letter. Frank Nweke Jr., a host of eminent Nigerians from the North Central to the Northeast to the Northwest, in fact, names like Ismail Ahmed, Kadira Ahmed, a few of them who are from the core north of the country, and those who are from the deep west and south of the country have come together to write this letter. And that letter, you described Nigeria as bleeding and compared our casualty figures to war zones like Ukraine and Gaza. Is Nigeria effectively an undeclared civil war?
Well, from the data, it's about more than a civil war. If you look at the number of people that have been killed in Gaza, in Syria, and in other conflicts around the world, you will see that Nigeria, though at peace, technically at peace, is showing symptoms far more deeper than countries at war. This whole group came about. I went to Plateau State for an event, and after the event and listening to the villagers and to the local government officials and all the government officials I met during the course of my trip, I came to the conclusion that our country is hurting badly. There is despondency, and there seems to be no hope, and there seems to be no trust. So I reached out to a couple of my friends, both from the different parties. There's APC, there's PDP, there's people with other interests, civil society people, and they all were thinking the same thing, interestingly. So we all decided to come together, both people in the academia and across various segments of Nigeria. And writing the letter itself was a learning point for all of us, because we saw the sensitivities of people from different regions of the country. We understood the feelings from the different aspects of the country. So this letter is our call out to the nation to say the country is bleeding and it is time to stop it. It is time, before we lose this country, we need to come together. So this is not a blame game. This is not passing the buck to anybody, but we're calling on the government of the day to show leadership and bring leaders of the country across the country to see how we can resolve this descent to anarchy. And on a smaller scale, you can see the type of violence and activities we're witnessing at the airport, from Palm 1 to Miss Emerson. you could see that there is a total disregard for law and order, for security in the country. And it goes back to what happened a few days ago in Katsina, when almost 27 people were killed in a mosque who were there for prayers. And then, of course, the kidnapping that took place. So it is a situation that is just beyond internal crisis anymore. The government has to high-grade this and say we are in an existential crisis and we need to solve it. The same seriousness with which we faced the issue of whether it is fuel subsidy, whether it is the naira, floating of the naira, we need to bring that same seriousness and national consensus around the issue of violence. And it will give us an opportunity to redefine our security system.
Are you over-exaggerating the matter in the manner in which you captured it, you and your colleagues? And you have argued in that letter and that you said the Nigerian state has surrendered its monopoly on the use of force. Is this an admission that the state has lost control to non-state actors, or is this an exaggerated situation of the state of affairs?
Well, when we heard that the Air Force used air power within Nigerian borders to rescue people yesterday, that the Nigerian Air Force was using air power, I do not know what else will be exaggeration. If we have to use our air power to restore order in certain parts of the country, if we have to understand that the Sahel region, all the way to Burkina Faso, all the way from Niger to Faso to Mali, are now witnessing intense stress that is impacting us here in Nigeria. And then taking that together with the Northeast and other security forces, our military are now in 36 states of the Federation. That's not a common. It is not something that should be ordinary. That the military made for external fighting they are now stuck in Nigeria fighting a war where they are using.
Oh dear. There's a bit of a technical glitch there, but Mr. Osita Chidoka has been speaking to us on the letter written by these eminent Nigerians who think that the nation needs to rise up and really pay more attention to the issue of security, which is now, we are seeing rising figures in number of attacks, and we're just 8 months into the year 2025. A spike in the number of attacks and the deaths from what non-state actors have melted on the nation and innocent people, communities being sacked, and government and security agencies are saying efforts are being taken. But in all of these, Mr. Chidoka is back with us. One of the recommendations, because one thing I like about what you have said, and I don't think a lot of you on that list are flippant people. And that's why it's gotten our attention on this channel. I see the caliber of persons on that letter, eminent people who had paid their dues in the development of this country. Journalists like Kadura Ahmed, former minister like yourself and Frank Nweke Jr., coming out to say Nigeria, and in fact, a serving member of this government like Ismail Ahmed. And when you're saying these kind of things, it shows something that Nigerians need to pay attention to this. But with the figures that I'm aware of, we saw a nosedive. We saw a southern dip in the number of attacks and deaths. And security looked better in 2024 compared to 2023. The figure says so. But in 2025, we've not, in fact, gotten to the end of the year yet. And we've almost doubled the numbers of attacks and deaths that we're seeing over the last year. So you are making a suggestion, which was one of the things that I like. You're not only highlighting the problems, but we are talking about recommendations. Your group is calling for a presidential task force on national security with extraordinary powers. Would it be a bypass existing institution, or is it the bold step Nigeria needs?
it's a bold step Nigeria needs. A nation in an existential crisis has to take strong steps to reassert its authority. Not only reasserting its authority, but giving the citizens confidence that the country, the nation is alive to its responsibility, that the state is not belittling the issue of losses of lives. When lives are lost, 27 people killed in a mosque, in any other society, this will be the issue. This will even cause mayhem in the civil society in any country. Now, you put that together with that, what you said in 2025, we've seen a rise. And that rise, we are saying there is need for the whole country, across opposition, across the government of the day, across the National Assembly, to sit down again and take a strong look at both the kinetic and non-kinetic strategies to bring him back the dignity of man, to bring him back the responsibility that the purpose of government is the safety of lives. That is the number one purpose. We've surrendered our sovereignty to the government because we want to be assured of the safety of our lives. So now, youth corps members are not going to certain states of the country. People posted in certain states do not go. Students are no more going to universities outside their home area. The ties that bound us as a country, all of us in that group, we share something in common. We were all young people in the 70s. Many of us went to federal government colleges, state colleges that had people from across the country coming together. Mohammed was former Minister of Environment in the APC government. Like you said, people from diverse backgrounds. But we all remember when we used to travel by train in this country. I remember very well when I used to go to Maiduguri, traveling all night to go to Maiduguri. So we want our country back, and we're saying time for government to say, number one issue in Nigeria today is the safety of the lives and property of citizens. And we're going to take any measure, no matter how extraordinary, to restore order to Nigeria. We cannot have a country we have surrendered to people, to non-state actors. That is a recipe for disaster. That is a recipe for breakdown of law and order. That is why I came out strongly opposing the kid gloves with which we are treating people who are challenging law enforcement officers in Nigeria. And I think my colleagues, all of us here, from Ugebujo to Sam Amadi to Rotimi, all of us in that group share that same philosophy. Time to get our country back. So we are going to engage the government. We are sending these letters to the National Security Advisor, to the President, to the Senate President, to the Speaker. And we are saying time to take back our country. We cannot surrender this country to non-state actors. It is totally unacceptable, and it is the road to Syria.
Mohammed Abdullahi, representing North Central on that list. Kadir Ahmed, Northwest. Nuruddin Mohammed, Northwest. Abdullahi May Basira, North Central. Dr. Ali Adamu, Northeast. Bashiru Isa, Northwest. Ismail Ahmed, Northwest. Dr. Usman Balami, Northeast. Paul Ogbole, North Central. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, former minister, North Central. And Abu Bukar Abba Master, Northeast. And the likes of Sam Amadi, Ugo Egbujo, Toye Cole, Yemi Adamolekun, Tolu Aderemi, Frank Nweke Jr., yourself, and Sergio Sogun from the southern region of the country, all coming together. But in all of this, one thing that I see that is very fundamental is you are also making comparison and lessons that we need to learn, and perhaps what Nigeria also needs to look at. And you mentioned countries like Rwanda, Colombia, and Northern Ireland, who you say have turned the tide by reforming their security forces and pursuing reconciliation. But I speak closely to and regularly with very top officials within the security agencies, and things that I cannot even say on television that are of knowledge of the effort that are being made in the intelligence community and even in the forces. And it does look to me, I spoke with the CDS a few days ago, who said it does look like there's some political ants and manipulation in the kind of attacks that we say. And that's a sad scenario playing out in our country if politics is being brought into all of this. But if there's any lesson to be learned from these three countries that you have that mentioned, what would those be?
The first lesson is that they all, first of all, created elite consensus. The elites of the country realized that it was not in anybody's interest, both government and opposition, to have a country controlled by non-state actors. So if the opposition today is hailing the non-state actors, even if they form the government tomorrow, they will not be able to bring down the non-state actors. So there is need for unity of purpose. There is need for elite consensus. And I think that the government needs to pursue that. Just like we have the economic team in the country, we need to have a social team, a team that brings us together to have our common Nigerianness, our common humanity back to the table, so that both the opposition, both the government in power will know that on issues affecting our security, we are united. And that means that there needs to be a measure of trust and confidence building to bring that to happen. This is one of the things that happened in the three countries we mentioned. In Colombia, in Rwanda, and in Ireland, the elites realized that there is need for consensus. The second one is that we need to rethink our security architecture. And I think so many people have spoken about that. I believe the National Security Advisor is doing a lot on that. The government of the day is probably doing a lot on that. But the idea that our police is a national police with less than 400,000 people manning the country down to DPOs in the state is now something that we need to review. For me, I think that when we use the word policing, it means that we are talking about all the security agencies in the country. So it means that the policing power that is in the Nigerian police has been handed over to our civil defense, to our Federal Road Safety Commission, to our state vigilantes. So there needs to be common training, common information sharing. We need to stop thinking of police as sitting down in the Inspector General's of Police office. We need to think of police as every law enforcement officer, including the one in your street that is from a private security company. All of them must work harmoniously to build what I call a new security architecture. And finally will be that after reforming security, we noticed that in all of this country, what they did was to be open and transparent about the sources of the problem, the hate, the bitterness, the ethnicity, the whatever are the drivers. We need to honestly address them to be able to bring peace back to Nigeria. But it is urgent. The country is bleeding. We need to do that right now.
Osita Chidoka, former Minister of Aviation, thanks so much indeed for your time.